Faith Works Live is the name of the show. Rebekah Haynie is my name, and I'm just so glad you're here. Particularly a shout out to the moms. Now, dads, I love you too, but momming is hard work. It is not easy. And I'm discovering that anew every time we go through the newborn cycle. You'd think that I'd be an expert by now because, we've got a bunch of kids at the Haynie house. But it seems like every time I discover new and different challenges, and I think God gives us new and different kids with different personalities and different needs, and just to test us, just to stretch us a little bit and to make us appreciate our own mamas that much more, because that's how it affects me. And I think as the world is watching us scramble for things like baby formula, there's a lot of shortages that take place, but none are going to hit you like not being able to feed your kids. So the formula over the baby panic and discussion over, what our government should have done, what our corporations should do, all of that is vital and important. But the area where this hits home for me is when it comes to motherhood and what we're doing with our families, the mixed messages and the confusion that we have in our culture at such basic fundamental levels. We have to rediscover things like, hey, when does life begin? Or what is a woman exactly? So is it any wonder that women who are, approaching motherhood or scared to approach motherhood are super confused about this and feel pressures and stresses that maybe past generations never have? And it is with this, and I know it because I felt it, and I've wrestled with these questions at 3 a.m., when the baby wakes you up. Which is lots of great time for introspection and deep thoughts. Also activates your prayer life. I will say that too. Into this fray, I need the wisdom of moms who have figured it out or have helped, are battle worn and weary, and this fight, where to go for some truth, some answers, and just maybe a shoulder to cry on. We need more moms speaking up about what motherhood really is, and the good, the bad, and the diaper changes. And that is why I have called upon a very wise woman. Diane Patrick is our guest today. We're going to talk about motherhood, mixed messages, and where we should be going to truly honor moms and prepare women for the best and most intense job they can have. Many of us doing so while we work other jobs as well. Diane, it is wonderful to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Rebekah.
And you are joining us from your place of business as well, because you are a working mom, well, grandma now too.
Yes, both.
You're the auditor for my new home in Boone County, which is pretty awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty new at my job still, but I'm loving it, and it's stretching my brain a lot. So that's probably good at my age. I need that. So,
well, what's the day in the life of a county auditor look like?
Well, it depends on where we are in the year. In addition to being the county auditor job also encompasses being the commissioner of elections for the county. So that is a big job this time of year, actually almost any time of year, but I have a great staff. So that's wonderful to help me through this. I am an early riser, so my day looks like I get up and spend a little time with my husband, make him breakfast, try to get some domestic stuff done, and then get to the office early because I can accomplish a lot more when there's not constant interruptions, which is what the rest of the day brings. And then I'm just there, depending on what's going on. Like yesterday was election training. So that's a way different day than a normal day, but it's a lot of emails, a lot of reports that have to be filed, a lot of answering questions that I generally don't have the answer to right away, and I get to learn about, but it's really fun and challenging. And it's a great job because it gives me since I get to use my servant's heart, I guess, a lot because I am a public servant, but just lots of challenges and lots of fun.
Mm-hmm. And if people are watching the video, they get to see a big cage type structure behind you.
Right. That is actually an election security. That's like election security cage that we will, when we take things out to the polling sites, we lock things in there. So we use public facilities, and they don't always have, like sometimes they're unprotected. So until we get election workers there, we need to have some pieces of equipment secure and stuff. So it's actually something new that we just brought in, and I haven't even started utilizing them yet, but it looks like I'm at a zoo and I'm really not. It's my elections vault. So
well, that would be a fun conversation. We'll have you back so that we can
oh
focus
yeah, I would
on
love that.
elections and security, because that's a huge topic.
Yes.
I'm far from an expert on it, but I would learn a lot.
Yes.
And
And
it's
it's so fun.
incredibly important. I would love to talk about that. So you got yourself booked for part 2 already.
Okay, there we
See
go.
how this is going? This is awesome.
Sure.
Now, let's get maybe a little bit of your background. I mentioned you're a mom and grandma, which is incredibly important to make sure we put in there. That's very, very important. So what was it like for you as a mom? Were you working as well when you were raising the kiddos?
I was in a pretty unique position where my husband's job required a lot of moving around. And so when I was young, I consider myself a stay-at-home mom because for the most part, I did stay home with my girls. I had the opportunity, I would did a lot of different things part-time, more for fun. It was just kind of, not that we didn't need the money yet, but it
Money's
was
always
it
nice.
was
It does help.
but I did not graduate from college. I did a vocational type thing. So I wasn't able to make enough money to justify paying for daycare for 2 kids, which is what we had. So, and with the relocating, I just did a lot of things like teaching preschool, or I worked at a bakery for a while. I actually have done, kind of had my own home business and done a lot of that type of thing. But I also always had the freedom to be a volunteer in the classroom for my girls. I was room mom or volunteering for church or volunteering for everything, because when you're the stay-at-home mom, you get that call a lot.
Sure.
But I was so blessed to be able to do that. And it worked great. It was for our family, because my husband's job was pretty demanding. I was able to be that home executive, or whatever that, like the term used to be, but to take care of all the things on the home front and be his helpmate. And just, it was a blessing to have that ability. And it was so important to me. And when you talk about mixed messages, of course, I had been like a great pupil, all that stuff, on the intelligence thing, whatever. But so I did my own internal struggle, where a lot of days I felt like, gosh, why am I just wasting my time doing this when I could be doing something more? But now I have learned that, that's kind of God's plan, because now I have this block of time where I can use all those skills and things that I've learned. But I also have that background where I was able to be that mom and be there, and I'm so thankful for that.
Well, and see, this is where I need to sit at your feet and study your wisdom, because I know that struggle, and I've been, and listeners to the show may know, I was a career gal for a long time. I was in radio. I was dedicated to the radio shows that I was doing as a producer, and now doing this thing, doing the host thing and the microphone, and thinking, okay, this is the way I'm going to serve. I assumed, for a long time that I wasn't going to be the mom. I honored moms, and I really loved that my mom stayed home and she homeschooled 4 crazy kiddos. That's dedication right there. I don't care who you are. That's like the front lines. Like the drill sergeant got nothing on her, and she always did it with generosity and a smile and just kindest heart. It's almost a miracle, I'm sure. And I need more of that patience in my own life. And then God put me in a whole different set of circumstances, right? Things can change.
It's amazing.
And I met a really awesome, godly guy, and he had kiddos. And so I'm a mom now. And then we had even more kiddos, because we're the Haynie bunch instead of the Brady bunch. We need our own theme song, so I'm still working on that one. But it just completely changed the way I was thinking. So for a while I was working full time and being mom, and now I'm in a situation where I'm able to dedicate our time here at home. But a lot of those thoughts go through your head, right? Like, how do you manage all this? And is it worthy? Is it worthwhile? Because our world tells us you are only worth the money you bring in, the quantity, that like we quantify humanity based on money, productivity. And if you were to say those things out loud, it sounds terrible. Like with our mouths, we say, oh, moms are wonderful. Moms are awesome. Here's flowers for Mother's Day. It's the hardest job in the world. But with our actions and with our policies, we tell women something very different. You have to go to college. Wonderful. That's great. You need to inspire your mind, find your skills, and all of that. Yes. Amen. God gave you those skills for a reason. Hello.
Yep.
And it's honoring to him when you use them. But we also tell them it's the career path is the only path. And if you stay at home, if you have children, then you're wasting your time, wasting your skills. And, and I heard those and I knew at the time, like, that's not really right. But I internalized those lies without understanding how deep they really went. And that's been a struggle for me, just even, recently here as my life has changed and I've reprioritized so many things. I thought, okay, God, am I really making the most of what you've given me? And, how do these dirty diapers glorify you? And to be honest, like, I'm just having flashbacks because we had some severe blowout issues this morning, just to get really real. But how have you helped work through, because you just mentioned that what that's like. So what are some of the ways that, in your own heart, in your own life, you've been able to work through and put some of those questions to rest in your own heart?
Well, I have to say, it was a struggle. And for me, I know it was a total pride issue that God was using that to work on me. I remember having dreams about like talking to classmates and them, making comments to me. And I know it was just things I was doing because I really didn't have anybody that externally put that pressure on me that made me feel less than or anything. I did that to myself. And I think it's because I did, growing up, there's certain expectations. And I kind of had that. I remember being late teens, early 20s, thinking, oh, I'm never getting married, I'm never having kids, because I didn't value that. And so it was just something that God used to work in me. And I, a few conversations once in a while with my husband when he would say something about, well, such and such's husband or wife makes this much money, or, just things like that. And I would internalize those, even though I know he didn't mean them the way that I was taking them. But I think it was a pride issue. It was, I felt to myself, I could be doing something more important, and why am I not using my skills? And but that was not what God had for me. And this is more something I had to grow into, to kind of accept and realize. And I think each day choosing joy and enjoy. And when I let myself enjoy being a mom and being there for my kids and being, it's kind of a crazy thing, but I talked about this for a while, but when we, came to a point in our marriage, it wasn't terrible, but it was rocky. And one day I just had this, impression from, or I don't know, something, the Holy Spirit moved in me or something that I needed to get up. My husband was getting up at 4:00 in the morning to go to work. And I was still in bed and I was enjoying that and not, and all of a sudden it was like, I should get up with him. And I started getting up with him. And while he was in the shower, I would make his breakfast, and it changed our marriage. And we, just having that servant's heart and being there for him, and just seeing the way that God would honor some of the sacrifices that I made, and then it like changed my personality, where now I'm this huge morning person, and I love that time in the morning to have once he goes to work and I have my quiet time, and like just God honors the sacrifices that we make. And it was just a maturing process. It's something now that I look back on and I'm thinking, why was that ever a issue? Because it wasn't things that other people were doing. It was just my own whatever getting in the way. And so I just had to learn to embrace what he had blessed me with, and to look back now and see what a blessing it was that we had those circumstances, that I was able to make those choices, because I know there's a lot of women that isn't a choice for. So that is another struggle that we put on women. And in addition to this whole mental thing we have to go through, financially, it is not an option for everybody. So, I think just as I learned to step back and look at the blessings that things were, it changed my heart. So,
Mhm. Yeah, well, and that's so key, because if you look at scripture, it doesn't really talk a lot about, at least in specifically for women choosing between career and motherhood and all of those things. What
Right.
you have is a list of very hardworking women that are also mamas, and that's why we exist on this
Right.
planet today.
Right.
So we recognize, and God, we mothers reveal the heart of God in such unique ways.
Mhm.
And I don't think that we honor that enough. There's a lot of, the church, we have our own issues. So there's the culture still applies to women.
Right.
And then we've got the church that maybe puts alternate expectations on women
Right.
that don't really feed the heart of our spiritual needs. We maybe don't talk about the ways in which we are reflecting God's heart, beyond which, well, this is, the woman's role. And maybe they put pressure on women who are working outside the home that they have to come back.
Right.
So it's like a huge ping pong of stress effect, because that's what women really need, is more reasons to feel mom guilt.
Sure.
But the New Testament is very clear that the call to serve Christ is to die to yourself and to live for Christ. And that would be true in any role. And I think motherhood reveals that. What I'm learning as I trod this path with feeble and sleep-worn eyes and feeble legs is exactly that this is a call to die to yourself. And these are ways in which God is going to reveal more of Christ in me as I get out of my own way and put the pride to death in my own life. And I think the irony of that is that we're never more ourselves than when we discover who we are in Christ. Right. So when I'm concerned about, not using my skills or education, or not making enough money, it's not being productive, any of those things, then I'm actually, the more I get out of my own way and allow Christ to reign in me, then I'm actually being the most productive that I possibly can. And God will give me and give us as women opportunities to shine for him more, and to use those skills, like you said, ways that we never would have predicted or imagined when we were trying to struggle through those late night questions.
Right. It is. I mean, just to see the way he orchestrates the circumstances of our lives, and he obviously knows better than we do. So yeah, and we do just need to get out of the way and let him work in us.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's take a little break. We'll come back with Diane Patrick, who is just an awesome lady. She's a mom, so she's an expert on motherhood, right? Because she is a mom and her kids, and she's been through it. She's got the battle scars to prove it. She also serves currently as Boone County auditor in Iowa. So I find that just absolutely fascinating. As a new resident of Boone County, I'm excited to know I can trust the elections in our county. So I want to talk about that in future shows. But there's a really great piece from Helen Roy that I want to get your take on, Di, when we come back, because she shows how this baby formula shortage can really shed a light on all of the lies that we believed about motherhood, and maybe need to start a conversation. It's ostensibly about breastfeeding, and it has the craziest title that I never thought I would say on Christian radio. So there's a tease. You have to hear this when we come back. This may be my last show for saying it, but I'm going to say it because we need to start talking about it. And I will. I'm not afraid. We will return when we come back here on FaithWorks Live. At FaithWorks Live, we're proud to partner with InnerVisions Healthcare. In unplanned pregnancy and STD situations, they offer help and hope. It's all confidential, and it's all free. If women are in a crisis pregnancy situation, they know that they can get real help at InnerVisions. Free pregnancy testing, free STD testing, free ultrasounds as well, to see that inner vision. Because women deserve the truth about their bodies, about their baby, about all of their options. And if a woman has gone down the road of seeking abortion through medication and she regrets that decision, InnerVisions also offers abortion pill reversal procedure, which is a life-saving, miraculous option to have right here in our own community. InnerVisions Healthcare, well worth supporting, providing those free services to women in crisis pregnancy. You can call them 24 hours a day at 515-440-2273.
That's 515-440-2273. Now is the time to stand for life. For 50 years, Iowans for Life has been the longest standing nonprofit pro-life organization in Iowa, and they stand strong today as Pulse Life advocates. They believe in defending the defenseless, and that's what we need now, a new generation to value the sanctity of all human life from fertilization till natural death. They advocate at the Capitol, in classrooms, at events across the state of Iowa on abortion, on family planning, on physician-assisted suicide, euthanasia, basically every issue where the culture is so contrary to what God calls us to. They're standing in the gap as defenders of the defenseless, and they're a voice for the voiceless because they believe in the value of life. And if you do too, sign up for their newsletter and get involved today at pulseforlife.org. That's pulseforlife.org.
Thanks for listening to FaithWorks Live. I said this may be my last show for what I'm about to say. But I'm going to say it anyway, because I think it's important. We're talking about motherhood, mixed messages, the crazy confusion that we have in our culture. And really, we have, by our words, by our mouths, we have honored moms. We've talked about how important motherhood is. Like literally, we would not exist on this planet without our own moms and without women signing up to be moms over and over again. But with our policies, with our assumptions, and now openly with rhetoric, we're training women to basically hate themselves if they want to be moms. And I don't think that's too strong to say that. We have this huge internal struggle, and I'm not sure the church has always been as direct as it is needed to be about confronting some of these and bringing a biblical perspective, saying, no, this is how God sees moms. This is the skill set that we need to encourage in our daughters so that they will be able to be ready. It is sort of a countercultural revolution to say, hey, I'm a mom. I'm happy about it. I don't hate my kids, and I'm not going to post nasty things about them on TikTok. Is it easy? No, with 3 O's and 5 exclamation points. It is not easy. The Darth Vader, no, it is not easy. But I really appreciated a piece from Helen Roy at The American Mind, and I'll link it down below. And here's the title that I don't think has ever been said before on Christian radio, but I'm about to say it. Okay, everybody get ready. It's called Up by Your Boob Straps. And I really appreciate that she's calling attention to what our formula shortage is exposing about America's view of womanhood. And it's kind of a long piece, so we can go through it in more detail later on. But specifically, when we can't find formula on the shelves, it's revealed to us, the response that many people have had is, well, why aren't women breastfeeding? Why aren't more people doing that? More women, specifically, not people, women, breastfeeding. It is a challenge. And it's because it requires such major commitment. Now, for some women, there's medical reasons or health emergencies where this just hasn't been possible for them. And they feel so much mom guilt about the situation. I have been there where maybe my body wasn't responding the way that I thought it should or would, or why isn't this working? And, you are up. You're round the clock, basically trying to find a way to feed your child. It's a major, major commitment. There's, medical reasons for many women that make it challenging or impossible. It is a big struggle. And coming down to why most women most women try to breastfeed, but very few succeed beyond 6 months. Only 13% of American children are breastfed by the 6-month mark. So this piece from Helen Roy is asking the question, it's not why American moms don't breastfeed, but why do they give up? And she says, the most obvious reason is women aren't around their infants. Once they're 6 weeks, somewhere between 6 weeks and 3 months, most women have to go back to work. And they believe that that's the most important thing they can do for their family. In many ways, they are, that's essential, right? They can't make ends meet unless they go back to work. But we have celebrated this, the working woman, to say, all right, well, when are you coming back to work? And they put their babies in daycare. They feel like they have to go back to work. and the statistic Roy gives in the article is 1 in 4 moms are back at work within 2 weeks of giving birth. 2 weeks. Like, you're not even healed from the C-section after 2 weeks. Like,
No.
let's break that down. That is incredibly, that's so, and it's so dividing in a mom's heart.
Yes.
Having been that working mom, and it's such a struggle. Like, you feel like you're a bad mom if you're putting your child in daycare and leaving your child, especially when they're so young. But you also feel like you're a bad mom if you're not going out to work, because that's what we're supposed to do, right? Make money to feed the family. And in a very real sense, that's the economy and that's the society that we have created, where women feel and in some cases are, by financial decree, required to work, and that takes them away from their child.
Mhm.
And here's the major quote that I'd like us to consider today, Diane, and I'll get your thoughts on this. The common thread uniting all the reasons most American mothers give up on breastfeeding by 6 months of age is our fundamentally demeaning, widespread cultural attitude toward the prospect, process, and practice of motherhood. Only in a world where women are regarded as more useful, valuable, important, and respected in their workplace than at home do women within 2 weeks of childbirth abandon their infants to daycares while they themselves are still bleeding out of a placental wound the size of a dinner plate. And that's the sort of thing that needs to be said out loud to reveal itself as utterly barbaric. Breastfeeding is a beautiful and uniquely feminine art form that, when mastered, produces untold benefits for children and families, but it is not the most tragic casualty of our culture of maternal disregard. And she goes on to connect it to, our confusion about gender and our confusion about when life begins. Some of these very basic life, matters of our mere existence. We're so confused and, in a very real sense, antipathetic towards. We're fighting against what God has designed in so many ways, and motherhood is just one of them. So now this is the place where I pause in my rant so that you can actually respond with your wisdom so that I can learn from this, because that's really what it's all about. Is I need to get smarter. So that's why I need to come to you, Diane Patrick, Diane Patrick. And I call her Di because we're friends like that. But so when I know you've mentioned facing some of these struggles and some of the ways that God has helped you come through this as a mom. But I mean, these are problems that in some ways we brought upon ourselves as a society, but that's not a help to the moms who are going through it right now.
Right. And I wish I had some great insight as to what that is, and the answers. It is part of a bigger problem. I mean, Satan likes death. Satan likes to attack everything. Genesis 1 and 2, go down the list and you can check mark. He's gone after this, he's gone after this, and destroying the family is just one piece of that. And, it comes down to a commitment of people to be that person for their baby. We just have to start fighting against that societal message that we have, because that it's funny, because when your kids as they get a little older and they start toying with calling you by your first name instead of calling you mom and stuff. I remember just that little heartbreak that you get when your kids start to say, Diane, you're dad, and to be able to say to them, I am your mom. There's only 2 people in this world that get to call me mom. That's special for you. And that's kind of just the attitude we need to have about all that mothering stuff. And it doesn't look the same for everybody. For some people that is breastfeeding, for some it's, be working part-time or whatever, but we need to find that special spot that we are the moms of these children. And this is a distinct gift God has given us. And no matter what that picture looks like for us, we'll make it work for our families, but they have to be the first, and ignore those messages from the outside and do what you have to do for your child or children. And sometimes that's giving up things that we want, and because they have to come first. So it's just it's a small component of that big thing that you are doing. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel it's necessary whenever we have conversations like this to recognize, as you have a couple times, that people's situations are different, and there are
Yes,
people
it
who
doesn't- yeah.
who are, maybe single moms, and working mom situations where you absolutely are doing your best all the
Yep.
time,
Yep.
like 48 hours a day kind of work.
Right.
And God bless you and God be with you in that. And I've been on kind of some different sides of that coin. And when you
Yeah.
have to do it all at once, that's a real struggle. But I do think that we put too much pressure on moms in ways that past generations never did.
Right.
Because the assumption was that you are going to be like, how valuable that is, that the moms are raising up the next generation of everything. And
Yeah.
what wouldn't you give up in order to help support that? And the men need to go out and break themselves physically and mentally many times in order to support that, because of the uniqueness
Right.
of the mother and child relationship, and the nurturing and the training and the molding that takes place in that, like not only physically nurturing their bodies with your body, I mean, for most of human history, but to be able to train up a child and to show them your expressions and the basis of language and communication, and just being able to be human. All of those lessons take place. Those very first ones are coming from mom. Not to mention, when they get older and sassy and they need the mama's
Yep.
example and the mama's, wisdom and training, and, sometimes a stern look from mom, that mama eyebrow
Oh
comes
yeah,
into
for
play.
sure.
And so do dads. So dads, you'll have your whole own show because of how vital and important you are. And that needs to be said and underscored in a society as well, because we're so professing to be wise. We have become just, completely fools.
Amen.
We think
And
we know
that's-
so much more, and yet we have so few answers anymore. How does that work?
Oh, I don't know. And for sure too, the men are getting different messages too than, what's tradition, a lot of men don't have that attitude that they're going to do what it takes to keep their wife there, or, so, I mean, that's something, because everybody else's wife is out working, so why can't yours be, so they get a lot of mixed messages too. And, God's plan is the best, and we live in a fallen world, so that doesn't always happen for everybody. We recognize that, and we just have to work together to help the ones that we're in community with to realize that, and to give them the support that we can too. Ideal situations don't happen very often, so we just have to recognize that. Don't judge each other.
Mhm.
There's a lot of different circumstances we don't know anything about, so just be there for people that need your help. Reach out, and especially when you're like me, when you're an older mother or getting into that, I don't have local, my daughters both live away from me right now, and my grandkids are away, so I have a little more flexibility with time and things. So the people that I'm around, that I have a young mom that works in my office, and so I'm not trying to be her mother, but yet I can be a resource for her if she needs anything. I'm happy to share, to do what I can, and other moms that I, in my neighborhood, there's other people I can help minister to and share, and they might not choose the same things that I chose, or would, they would not be right for them. That's not their, but I can give my advice. I can give my, but I'm not going to judge the decisions they make for their children, and just try to be there to help and serve in whatever way God can use me.
Well, and that is so valuable. Like, that's worth its weight in gold, especially when we're approaching, like we've talked about. I mean, broken culture is basically like the subtitle of our epitaph at this point.
Everything.
And when you don't have an example of motherhood or fatherhood, or you feel like you're trying to flail in the dark to figure it out, you're gonna look for whatever examples you can find around you, or try to go it yourself. And that's a very scary kind of thing. We need, and specifically here, we need the church to step up, and Christian women, and I've seen Christian women do so independently, which is wonderful and awesome. But I think we can be far more intentional about cultivating strong motherhood and fatherhood, and realizing just how deep some of these wounds go, to the point where women are asking these questions. Maybe they don't have the courage to say it out loud,
Right.
but they could ask another Christian mom and say, I don't even know, am I doing this right? Is this the way this is supposed to go? Why is this so hard? Like, this is supposed to be the easiest natural thing in the world. Why do I have these feelings? Or why isn't this going well? And you can be honest with one another and go to a woman who may have been there. And so to have a couple of mom mentors, I think is critical. If it's your own mom, God bless her, and that's wonderful. Maybe you can find someone else in the congregation, getting plugged into a local church where that can be there for you. And, some of the older ladies just realize how much we need, not to say older ladies, some of the experienced mom warriors out there. That's what I should have said. Oh, live radio. That's what I should say. We need you. You are a treasure. Your experience is a treasure. Your mistakes, the things that you have gone through, can help the lives of women who are coming up behind you thinking, I got no idea what I'm doing or how I'm serving God in the midst of this. Can you help me?
Right. And it's interesting how the pendulum swings and stuff too, when you think about, even when you approach the topic of breastfeeding or formula feeding or whatever, and how in the last century, feeding your baby, for some eras, it was, that's dirty and gross and we don't do that. And then, so now we're to a point again where before there was commercial formula, what did you do if you do? I mean, that wisdom that's out there, and the way, that it's all over the board, and that helps us to glean, different answers for situations we might be facing. Who would have thought that, maybe a 75-year-old woman that had babies in, like 1940s would be a good source of information that we might need now in the current situations that we're facing. So, it doesn't mean it has to be a mom that just went through this a few years ago, because circumstances have changed a lot in the last 5 years.
True.
So it might be the next door neighbor that is 80 that can give you good advice at this point. So yeah, we can find sources of information and help all over the place, and we just need to recognize that and not be limited in our own mind of where we can find answers. It's not just Google. So there's
that's true.
Talking to each other is a good, and anybody who's been a mom, yes, we might have certain topics that we are passionate about, that we might be a little more, like if you have nursed your babies successfully and stuff, and that's the only way. But I think we've all had things in motherhood that, we know it's a struggle. And so talking to somebody who's been a mom for, whatever their circumstances were, can just be so helpful. So we need to have that sense of community and broaden where we find information. I think it's a good thing to do.
Very, very true. So things I've learned, go to God and go to grandma before you go to Google.
That's good.
Diane Patrick, oh my goodness, I'm learning so much from you, and we just have to have you back. Would you come back? We'll talk about elections and all sorts of fun stuff.
Oh, I would love to. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you again. Diane Patrick has been our guest here on Faith Works Live, and we're solving all the mysteries of motherhood.
What does love look like? Love means serving those who are truly in need, and that is what they do at Agape Pregnancy Resource Center. That's really what they're all about: helping, loving, serving women in crisis pregnancy situations with free pregnancy testing, STD testing, ultrasounds, and so much more. For practical needs, they have turned whole lives and whole family trees. It's amazing to see what they're doing right here in our very own community for women in need. They provide free services because they believe that women deserve the truth about their bodies and about their babies. And when women know they're not alone, they can fix the crisis and carry them through the pregnancy. They empower women to choose life. And like I said, whole families are here because of the work that they do at Agape. There are many ways to get involved, practical ways for you to live out your pro-life through Agape. Agape. Get involved with their important ministry at agapedsm.com. Click the tab that says Get Involved and find out their current needs and ways that you can help meet those needs and care for women in crisis and save babies at the same time. It's agapedsm.com. When you love people, you cook them tasty food. And there is no tastier food for my money and for my family than Anonymous beef. And they are so good at what they do. It's naturally raised beef. And in fact, there's several opportunities. You've had to be on a wait list because of how good and how popular their products are. Well, now there's new opportunity right now. Act now to get your Anonymous beef. There's no steroids or antibiotics. It is all natural, farm-raised butcher beef. And you can pay processing at the locker fees. They help walk you through all of the process. It's a little bit different than going to the grocery store, but it is well worth it. You get great value for your money, and they help walk first-time customers through the whole process. Now is the perfect time to provide great quality food for your family, and it just doesn't get better than Anonymous beef. So go to their website and start looking at your order today, whether it's half a cow or freezer full, whatever you need to fit your family, they'll help you out. It's anonymousbeef.com. That's OHNEMUS beef.com.
I mentioned this article from Helen Roy, and it's called, again, something I never thought I'd say on Christian radio, but I'm doing it anyway because that's kind of what I do. It's called Up by Your Boob Straps. And it's about the lies of modern womanhood, motherhood that are exposed when we consider this formula shortage story. And it's really, really worth a read. It's The American Mind. So if you're watching this, click the link below. I'll put it down there for your easy access. But for many people, the comeback of all of this have been, why don't more women breastfeed? At least that's what I've heard. That's what I've seen. And this is coming home to me. This is very real because that's literally what I'm doing every single hour of the day, pretty much, well, every 2 to 3. My life is determined by a tiny little less than 10-pound hunger machine who's incredibly cute. So she's well worth it. But any time of the day or night, you're basically physically on call with your infant, with your baby. And if it wasn't your baby, it really wouldn't be worth it. Like no kind of job has that kind of commitment, but that's what motherhood is. It is a commitment. It is a struggle. It is beautiful. There's so many benefits, but it's not something that I think we train or talk about as honestly as we should. I'm not sure that we, help women get a little bit of these reality, the real expectations of what this is going to be like. And to say nothing of the fact that there are many medical reasons that this becomes a challenge. Health emergencies, situations where, children are born prematurely or there are complications in surgery or whatever that might be. But more often than not, it does seem that career is a main focus for women. And we're told that should be, that is an ought, that you ought to feel that obligation toward your career. Oh, you just had a baby. Well, when can you be back to work? So American mothers are struggling through an incredibly physically challenging situation. The birth of a child, you're putting your body through more stress than it will logically face at any other time. And again, well worth it, right? Very pro-life here on this show, you may have noticed. So there's nothing else that's worth that kind of sacrifice. And yet women curtail their own connection with their children many times, or the amount of time that they're able to spend with their child at the very least, as well as their feeding habits, everything to do with the lifestyle and the nurturing of their child that they are instinctually, we want to be connected to our child and to spend time with our babies. For many women, maybe not all, but for many women, I think that is part of the design. And we feel those demands to pull away from that, and even crying, taking our children and putting them in daycare. I've been there and felt like a bad mom because of it. So we're going through all this and giving up in that little piece, perhaps, and we're getting it because of what we're told is best on all sides from our culture. And this would be from the feminist crowd. But not only that, I mean, I think most of the other side of the political island spectrum has vaunted those feminist values to say, well, the only way for you to be a complete, fulfilled, empowered, and equally respected woman is to go to work. And that you find your worth in many real ways. And now people are kind of openly saying that rhetorically. We find your worth in your career. What do you do for a living? How are you using your skills? You go to college. Why? So that you get a job. And so that you can be, that girl boss, that boss that's out there, stomping on the CEOs with your high heels. Like, that's the picture of a successful woman that the world worships. And as Christians, we know that, basically there's the world and then there's everything else that's real and true and valuable. And we can't believe the illusion and the lie. But so why do we? Why do we? I was a Christian woman raised in the church with a marvelous stay-at-home mom, homeschool gal. I understood the virtues of momming. And I knew that momming wasn't easy. And yet I faced all of these challenges myself, these warring instincts in my mind. How do I be the best mom? What does that even look like? And if I'm sacrificing career, am I more valuable in the workforce, bringing home, feeding my family, bringing home the money for the kids, right? Versus staying at home with them. Am I a bad mom if I choose to do that versus, if I stay at home? And all of these questions and concerns, it doesn't help that the culture is feeding us lies about life from the very beginning. We've so turned everything good into evil, and woe unto us for doing exactly that. And I think the church has to be a lot clearer when we look at supporting moms. And that's why you'll hear me always at every opportunity talk about ministries like Embrace Grace that empower women to be moms. If they're in an unplanned pregnancy situation, they're able to choose life, and that's great. And that's what we preach over and over again. But what next? What next? And ministries like pregnancy resource centers that support women to the point of birth and then far beyond, to give women not just, maybe some wisdom, some insight, some ultrasounds, great, and some diapers. And then we don't just send them on their way. We develop relationships and walk alongside women. So when we have these questions, we can be honest about them and we can have the skills needed to meet those challenges. God grows women through motherhood in ways that, that you will never be challenged anywhere else. Nowhere else would you put up with a coworker, or really more like an employer, who calls on you any time of the day or night, screams in your face, demands that you do everything for them and take care of them in the most basic ways. And then you could kiss their face and tell them how cute they are and how much you love them in ways that it's just such a special relationship between a mother and child. And in fact, it's so special that when God wants to quantify how much he loves his people and that special relationship that he had with his chosen people, he describes himself as the love of a mother. Right? That's how he describes his relationship, that even, a mother would never forget her child and a nursing mother would not forget her infant. But even if she does, God says, I will not forget you, Israel. I will not forget my people. I love you with an everlasting love. I am slow to anger, compassionate, and gracious towards you, like a mom. That's the comparison that he makes. And so that special relationship has to be honored, well, first of all, we have to rediscover it. All right, we have to understand more and more about how we've damaged that or how we've turned our backs on that so that we can turn back around. And if you are feeling that assault on womanhood, you are not alone. All right. If you have felt that guilt, no matter which decision that you make, you're not alone. My girl, Allie Beth Stuckey, often talks about what she terms toxic motherhood. And that's an issue where the support that we've given one another has been relegated to things like TikTok videos and Instagram posts about how our kids are jerks and how much latent resentment, so much so that one gal was spelling out things like "I hate you" in the ketchup on her kid's plate, while she was eating chicken nuggets, because the kid can't read yet. And so it was just, it's an assault everywhere on all the things that are good and true and beautiful, like the relationship between a mother and a child. Pro-abortion activists are stooping so low as to openly talk about how they're killing children, but they won't call them children. They call them parasites. And they believe that a parasite has no rights. That's a fun, bumper sticker to put out there when you realize that we have, again, turned everything that is beautiful on its head. And we wonder why we're in the state that we're in. So the nobility of motherhood, the nobility of womanhood, and there is no more beautiful picture of something that is distinctly feminine than motherhood, than the ability to bring new life into the world. And so we're turning again to a very important piece by Helen Roy at the American Mind. She says, here's how it closes: breastfeeding, a beautiful and uniquely feminine art form that when mastered produces untold benefits for children and families, is not the only or the most tragic casualty of this culture of maternal disregard. Contraception, abortion, divorce, and transgenderism can all be counted as similar symptoms of this deep confusion about the meaning of womanhood. We've seen that. We literally have Supreme Court justices that are ostensibly female and yet cannot define what a woman is. Oh man, we're so smart. We're so we can't think our way out of a brown paper bag at this point. But if marriage and gender, Roy writes, or motherhood is just another consumer choice, what is to prevent anyone from participating in any of those experiments at will? A ringing question. All right, she says, as wellsprings of unique human life, mothers are where the neoliberal regime, insisting on infinite fungibility, meets its terminus. The ineffable bond between mother and child transcends any other. Amen. The symbiotic, totally intuitive communication between mother and child, reflected in breastfeeding, is indicative of this essentially spiritual bond, but it is completely illegible to rationalists, communists, and capitalists. That sounds like a fun 90s band. But everyone else whose souls have been crushed by the machinery of post-modernity. Perhaps this is why womanhood has become a target for the Transatlantic Corporation and transhumanist publication alike. In many ways, get this, in many ways, woman is the final barrier between human as human and human as machine. And I think she's 1,000% right. There is no substitute for moms. As much as we try to blur the lines between gender, we talk about how men can get pregnant. What kind of foolishness is that? We have to call it chest feeding. Excuse me. I beg to differ. This is a distinction that has a difference. Nobody can replace women as moms. We all know this. We all know this in our heart of hearts. And most of us would even dare to say it, but not in mixed company. And why is that? Why can't we be bolder about the truth? I feel it is exactly what our call is in this day and age. You hear me talk about our call as the people of God to step into a darkened, benighted age, really. God has put us here for just such a time as this, but it does us no good if we will not speak out. If we will not stand up and say what is, maybe politically incorrect, but has been biologically fact for years and years, like men and women are different. And that is a good thing. That is a good thing. And if we can rediscover God's design, as much as we want to be our own boss and our own king of the universe, I'm sorry, there is a universe and the God that made it is in charge. You don't like his way, that's fine. You may think you have a better way, but you don't have a universe. So that's something that you'll just have to deal with and take to your therapist. But I would recommend taking it to God first. Just go and meet him. Go and have a conversation with God and talk a bit about some of the things that you disagree with him about. Job, it worked for Job. See also the book of Job, find some answers there. But we are in desperate need of confronting this foundational confusion that we have, which I suppose is really more like the heart of our rebellion. That when we get down to it, it's this cry to redesign mankind in our own image because we so rebel in our sinful hearts at the idea of acknowledging the sovereignty of God and following his rules, even though they're created for our own good, see the entire universe. But doing it our own way isn't working. It's really, really not. We do not have a better way. The evidence of that is in our daily news, on our headlines. It's in our own hearts. It's in the struggles that we have as, a third of the upcoming generation is seeking to identify as something other than man or woman. That's a wake-up call. Without that combination and that basic understanding of biology, we cease to exist. All right. So this is like the 11th hour for humanity at this point. If we're confused about those on such a deep level, then we know that we have to confront the lies, and we have to confront the father of lies. This is not a surprise to him. He's been working successfully at this for a long time to turn us against our God and therefore against our own best interests. But we've been cooperating with this whole party. So I guess as we close on this show, which, like I said, if this is the last show I ever do, I'm okay with that because I'm leaving it all out on the floor. Women should glory in being women, and men should glory in being men in the best sense of what that looks like. How do we know what is a woman? How do we know what a man is? We go to the author of manliness. We go to the author of what it means to be a woman. We go to our Heavenly Father. He's the one who created us and loved us and gave us a purpose and gave us these skills in our hearts, these joys, these quests in our hearts. And if we can't be honest about those things, that has to be the first step to confront the lies that the culture is telling. But as I've said, this is the responsibility of each and every Christian to be completely honest and to be unashamed of the way God has created his world and his universe, but also to show the joy, to live that in joy is our calling. And then that's one of those things that I hope I can embody a lot more. It's easy to get, just to get real honest, since we're besties. And I know I can trust you, just between you and me and the microphone. This is a struggle that we have to really believe in our hearts what God says is good and true and beautiful, because sometimes it feels messy. Sometimes it does feel like I'm quote unquote wasting time or youth or energy or skills or all that education, my doctorate in philosophy, and now I'm changing dirty diapers. There is such a paradoxical glory in that. God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And what he has placed, if you're a mom of young kids, what he has placed in your hands is nothing less than eternity, than the unique and beautifully woven soul of his own image that will last forever. Your career, no matter how good you are at it, is not going to last forever. Your biography, your best-selling book will not last forever. It's all going to burn. The empire, you can build a literal empire on this world and it will not last. Who remembers Nebuchadnezzar? Who remembers Genghis Khan? I mean, he's a footnote in our history books, if they even teach that in school anymore. Who is one of these days, the American empire is going to crumble and fall if the Lord tarries. And so it doesn't matter, how good you are at speechifying and how, if you run for office, God bless you. And that's wonderful, but that's for a specific day and time. It has a terminus. It has an end date. And so will you. And so will I. And anything that I say on this radio show is literally just vapor. It really is. But the word of the Lord will last forever. And it's what you do for eternity that will last. And there's nothing that you can do that will have a more eternal impact than looking at your child's eyes and telling them how much you love them and who Jesus is. That is the gift that God has given to moms and to dads as well. But specifically, and in those very first moments, he's given them, first of all, to moms, and he's placed the well-being of our child and our children in our hearts at such a deep level that we put them next to our hearts so that our hearts beat together. That is something that is more powerful than anything else this world can conjure up. The devil has nothing on that type of beauty and connection, and that is why he seeks to destroy it. And that is why he puts these, conflicting thoughts in our own hearts to tear away at the most beautiful thing that God has ever created. That is what came into my mind at 3 a.m. So thank you for listening to my sleep deprived rants. But I truly believe that if this is resounding in our hearts as moms, as grandmas, if you have been there and you're hearing this, maybe you're a guy who is willing to listen and willing to step into this front and say, yes, I need to honor and support the moms in my life, my mom, my wife, the moms at our church. If you see if you're not in that situation, you've already, crossed that Rubicon, and now you're in a different stage of life where you get to be grandma, grandpa, and, love the kids and spoil them and sugar them up and send them home. It's a different calling. But if you're in that season of life, look around and see some of the young moms and dads that you can bless, maybe in your church. Look around your neighborhood at that mom who is struggling just to hold it together sometimes. Pray for her. Pray for her. Invite her, maybe to come over for dinner or to babysit. If you are especially saintly, volunteer to babysit and help give her a little bit of time back to herself to collect her own thoughts and maybe take a shower by herself. There are so many ways that we can bless one another. If you know a mom who needs formula, you happen to see it out in the store, you're able to help her, support her in that way. I know many moms who are banding together in support groups, but support groups in healthy ways, because there's a lot of counterfeits out there that think that, a day off from mom means you have to go, get drunk on wine and complain about your husband and your kids. There's a place for honesty. That is true. But if there are ways that we can support one another in healthy habits and healthy life, that is honestly, that's what God calls his people to do. We are to support one another and to encourage each other, because again, nothing more important than raising up the next generation of humanity. You are empowering the very future of healthy reality and the spiritual formation of eternal souls. And that is a beautiful and worthy thing. That is a huge part of our mission. And if you want to strike a blow in this spiritual battle against the destruction of everything that God calls good and beautiful, start in the home. Start by supporting moms and babies. Start by supporting the family and healthy family units, healthy marriage. Start by respecting husbands and wives and motherhood and fatherhood yet again. That is the rebellion. That is the revolution. And that's what we're here for. So you heard it here first, or, you heard it here. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for listening. If you want to connect with us, feel free to do so. Facebook, FaithWorks Live on Facebook. Search my name, which is Rebekah Haynie, where all of your finer podcasts are bought and sold. And so that means like iTunes, iHeart, or on Spotify, also on YouTube. So if you're watching this, thank you. Go ahead and subscribe to us there so that you get all the videos that we post. And until next time, we have a mission. Let's be about it.